Stand part. I call the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Chairman, normally, and forgive me, there may well be a wee bit of humour injected into the following speeches in respect of the title, sir, because I've got to say that this bill could have a variety of titles. Most of them, I've got to say, are pretty negative. Todd McClay, this is the sort of hospital pass bill, from Todd McClay. It seems since the Honourable Todd McClay, sir, got this portfolio from Peter Dunn, we have had a litany of difficulties, from substandard legislation coming in, from cost blowouts around liable parent contributions to cost blowouts around the... no, it's not unfair. No, it's not unfair. I'm actually defending your minister, to the business transformation project where money just flows like water, or to use the biblical expression, they're raking in the sheaves in the IRD. So, sir, Mr McClay walks along, as I've said before, the guy with the shovel behind the elephant to clean up the mess, and we're delivered this. So, sir, this is, I think this is a nonsense bill. It could be called the nonsense bill. It could be called the IRD or the Todd McClay inconsistent, undefined incoherence bill. It could be called a lot of things, sir, because as we've seen right through this debate, and I note, to be fair to the Minister and the Chair, she is not the portfolio minister, but I note that the portfolio minister, and this is not the first piece of legislation, I think this is the third, sir, in the last 2 weeks, where the portfolio minister has refused to answer any questions and take any calls. Now, to be fair to the Minister and the Chair, it's not her basket of goodies, as it were, in a legislative sense, so she may not be well briefed. She does have some eminent officials behind her, but no questions have been answered. And this is a prime example, sir, a prime example of where the government has simply, blindly wandered into the abyss. This bill is designed to pull the wool over a few people, and as other speakers have said, make it look like they're doing something and not actually addressing the issue. And Terry Boucher, that eminent tax consultant who we've quoted many times tonight, there's a headline which could be aptly used in respect of this bill. He asks if the bright line test is the bright line test an example of enactment in haste, repent in leisure. Enactment in haste, repent in leisure. Because I would wager, as other people, or as Philip O'Mara, the Director of Engine Room Chartered Accountants, the headline on his article was taxing land transactions. Where's the bright side? Where's the bright side? And it's interesting that very few, apart from that learned colleague of mine, David Bennett, learned colleague, has got up, and at least I'll say he took a call. It was an unusual call, but at least he's consistent with his calls, has got up and tried to defend it. But no one, consistent in his inconsistency, but no minister has got up and tried to defend this, sir. No minister has got up tonight and even proffered an answer to any of the questions, and they have been legitimate questions. When you get a bill, sir, you could call this the drive a bus through it bill, because if we've talked about the definition of the exemption in farmland, the definition of main home, the great intangible connection to your main home, very psychedelic, that's a bit beyond me, I know, but very psychedelic, the sort of great intangible connection. We've got to change the guard there. Maybe this minister might answer some questions. But no one has got up to even provide an intangible justification for the incoherence, the inconsistency, and even to bat off, sir, the vast amount of criticism from the private sector accounting profession. Now, I know the IRD can't do it because they've got to work through a minister, but it's surprising. This is supposed to be the great flagship budget proposal to deal with property speculation. This is where Mr Key put a stake in the ground and said he's going to do something about it. And then the whole thing just simply peeled like an onion as the Chartered Accountants of Australia, New Zealand, EY, you name it, the Law Society, all came in and opposed this and said basically it was bunkum, that it will not achieve in any way, shape or form any of the objectives that the government seeks to go after. It won't do it. $5 million is the best estimate of how much revenue will be raised from this bill. $5 million when they're making, what, $1,000 a day, or I think Mr Twyford said, in terms of increased values and capital gains on property in Auckland. And all it'll raise is $5 million. And Mr Bennett says, hey, we're going after them. He made a speech earlier today. We're going after them. We're going after the big fat boys, the property, Mr Chair, the property speculators. We're going after them with the big stick, the big 10-year rule. Well, if that's the case, if the best he can do is to claw $5 million of legitimate taxpayers' funds out of them, well, I don't think the stick's that big at all. It's balsa wood, absolute balsa wood. So, sir, you could call this the biggest hoodwink yet by the National Party bill. Smoke and mirrors bill, my colleague says, because it's typical of the national government. A bit like the refugees thing. Suddenly, we're against it, we're against it, we're against it. Then Crosby, Textor and the pollsters come back and say the position is unsustainable. Mr Bishop in his former profession know all about that, of course. Know all about that, and a few of his mates who aren't here now. And suddenly the feet are put to the fire. Mr Bishop gets together with Stephen Joyce and a few of the gurus and goes, "Oh, we can't sustain this position because the people have woken up. They've woken up from their slumber and worked out we're having them on, so we better do something." Now, we don't want to do too much because that's against our ideology, says Mr Bishop, but we better do a bit just to make it look good around the edges. Yeah, a few refugees here, there and everywhere, as they did with that issue. And then they come in with a big stick saying, we are going to make a decisive move to deal with property speculators, especially in Auckland, and we get this. And Treasury says to them, look, it's not going to work, Minister and Prime Minister. You need a 5-year rule, not a 2-year rule. That's rejected. EY, chartered accountants, all the best experts come in and say, Minister, it's not going to work. It's going to do the opposite of what you want. It's not going to go after the property speculators because they'll just hold for 2 years and 1 day. It's going to go after mum and dad, Mr and Mrs Smith, who fall on hard times, have no choice but to sell the house, and they're going to get pinged by it. And the Prime Minister and Mr Bishop, because I'm bound, he's a tactician of great note, and Stephen Joyce and Todd McClare are in the room, and they go, oh, don't worry about it. We'll flick this one past the keeper, we'll fire one out the back line, the people won't know, we'll hoodwink them again. Well, the problem is that it's very rare, especially in a piece of tax legislation, where you abrogate the generic framework and where you get almost the entire profession coming out saying this is a load of the proverbial. You know, bull, except it's quality bull for the National Party, you know? And this is what the National Party are up against, sir. So you could call it, I know the Speaker's looking slightly worried, but I won't continue that analogy, sir. Trust me, I'm not that bad. But this is, this is the smoke and mirrors bill. This is the smoke and mirrors bill. You know, for all those young people sitting out there hoping as they sort of either listened tonight or saw the announcement about this bill thinking, hey, maybe for once the government's going to do something to deal with the speculation and keep, get a bit of a handle on the property prices in Auckland and around the place so that young people can get a fair go. Hey, they really probably wanted this thing to work, but people are going to be sadly and tragically disappointed. And I'll make Mr Bishop a bet, whatever he wants, I'll make him a bet that we'll be back here before the next election putting the elastoplast over this, and we'll regurgitate the Hansard such that it is, because Mr Bishop didn't take a call, Mr Mueller didn't take a call, the guy there whose name I can't remember is on FEC, Dick Cheney, whatever his name is, he didn't take a call.
Order,
the Minister,
order.
It's the Minister, memory lapse, sir.
No, I've asked the member to sit down. It is an old habit, but not a good habit, to treat people in that way. If the member genuinely doesn't remember people's names, then just don't refer to them in that way at all.
I having a senior moment, sir, yes indeed. But, we'll regurgitate the Hansard such that they are. But it speaks volumes that not one minister could get up here and even put up a tacit defence of this, not even one. Normally they'll get up and have a crack and poke a bit of borax at us and at least defend the principle. The Minister of Revenue must have gone down a burrow in this chamber somewhere because he hasn't taken a call on it throughout the whole debate. It's been left to other ministers. Obviously officials aren't needed because they weren't asked for any advice because they weren't going to answer any questions. So we'll regurgitate the Hansard, sir, as we come back to try and stitch this thing up. I lament in some ways that we are supporting this bill, but as Mr Twyford and others have said, I suppose anything, even this feeble attempt, this whitewash, this con to the New Zealand people, I suppose even that is better than nothing. But as I've said, you know, occasionally over the years, the National Party got to realise people aren't dumb. People will work it out. They'll work it out. Even that member over there, I give him a bit of credit. You know, people aren't dumb. They'll work this out. They'll work out that it's the big end of town that's getting the advantage here. And let's examine this. Let's make a prediction. The first mum and dad that's bowled over through hardship will be out there on the hustings.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Chairman, I seek a call on this title and commencement.